Welcome to Crime Story with Camila. Today we dive into one of Indonesia's most shocking and controversial murder cases, the brutal killing of Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat, also known as Brigadier J. What initially appeared to be a tragic shootout within the police force quickly unraveled into a scandal involving corruption, deception, and a web of lies. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thought on this mystery. This case captured national and international attention, sparking outrage, protests, and demands for justice. It exposed deep-rooted issues within Indonesia's law enforcement system and became known as the country's trial of the century. But what really happened on July 8th, 2022, was Brigadier J a threat as initially claimed, or was he silenced to cover up a deeper secret? Today, we will break down the case step by step. Who was involved, what led to Yosua's murder, how the police attempted to cover it up, and how justice finally caught up with the masterminds behind this gruesome crime. Stay tuned as we uncover the truth behind the murder of Brigadier Yosua Hutabarat. Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat, widely known as Brigadier J, was born on November 29, 1994, in Jambi, Indonesia. He was the son of Samuel Hutabarat and Ferdy Sambo, growing up in a humble yet disciplined household. From a young age, Yosua was known for his strong sense of duty, dedication, and loyalty, qualities that would later define his career in law enforcement. Driven by a passion for justice, Yosua pursued a career in the Indonesian National Police, joining the elite Mobile Brigade Corps, BRIMOB, in 2012. Over the years, he worked his way up, proving himself as a competent and reliable officer. By 2019, his outstanding service led to a prestigious assignment, becoming an aide-de-camp, personal assistant, to Inspector General Ferdy Sambo, the head of internal affairs for the Indonesian National Police. This role placed Yosua in close proximity to one of the most powerful figures in the force, a position that ultimately put him in grave danger. Beyond his career, Yosua was deeply committed to his personal growth. He was in the final stages of earning a law degree from Universitas Terbuka, set to graduate in August 2022. His ambition was not just to serve as a police officer, but to further his legal knowledge to make a greater impact in law enforcement. Tragically, he would never see this dream realized. To his family and colleagues, Yosua was more than just a policeman. He was a son, a brother, and a dedicated officer who lived by the principles of honor and duty. But his promising future was brutally cut short under circumstances that shocked the nation and raised serious questions about power, corruption, and the abuse of authority within the Indonesian police force. On July 8, 2022, a shocking and deadly event unfolded at the official residence of Inspector General Ferdy Sambo in South Jakarta. What was initially reported as a shootout between two police officers quickly turned into one of Indonesia's most controversial murder cases. According to the initial police statement, Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat, Brigadier J, was allegedly involved in an armed confrontation with another police officer, 2nd Patrolman Richard Eliezer Barada E. The official version claimed that Yosua had entered Sambo's home while he was away and attempted to sexually harass Sambo's wife, Putri Candrawati. As a result, Eliezer was said to have shot Yosua in self-defense after the situation escalated into a gunfight. However, from the very beginning, several inconsistencies in this narrative raised suspicions. The crime scene lacked clear signs of an exchange of gunfire. Instead, it appeared staged. From the moment Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat's body was returned to his hometown in Jambi, his family noticed that something was terribly wrong. The official police narrative claimed that Yosua had been shot in a self-defense incident, but the condition of his body told a much darker story. When Yosua's parents and relatives saw his body, they were shocked and devastated. Instead of a clean gunshot wound from a shootout, they found bruises on his face and body as if he had been beaten, deep cuts and wounds that suggested torture, broken fingers, which made his family suspect he had been restrained, burn marks, possibly from cigarettes or another heat source, gunshot wounds to his chest and head, which appear to be execution style rather than from an exchange of gunfire. His mother, Ferdy Sambo, broke down in tears as she examined his injuries. The family immediately doubted the police's version of events. If Yosua had truly been involved in a gunfight, how could he have suffered such extensive injuries? When the family requested an independent autopsy, they faced resistance from authorities. Police pressured them to immediately bury Yosua without further examination. They were also prohibited from taking photographs of his injuries. However, some family members managed to secretly capture images, which later leaked online and fueled public outrage. In response to the family's growing suspicions, Yosua's father, Samuel Hutabarat, demanded transparency and justice. He pleaded with the government for a proper autopsy, stating, "My son did not die in a shootout. He was tortured and murdered. We want the truth." The initial autopsy report conducted by the police supported the official version, claiming that Yosua had died from gunshot wounds sustained in a shootout. However, the family and forensic experts found several glaring issues. The trajectory of the bullets suggested close-range execution, not a gunfight. Some bullets appeared to have been fired after Yosua was already subdued or dead. The lack of gunpowder residue on Yosua's hands suggested that he never fired a weapon, contradicting police claims of an exchange of fire. As doubts continued to mount, public pressure forced authorities to conduct a second autopsy, which would later confirm the brutal nature of Yosua's death. This marked a turning point in the case, exposing a massive police cover-up that would shake the Indonesian law enforcement system to its core. Despite the Indonesian police's initial insistence that Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat died in a shootout, growing public skepticism and the family's unwavering demands led to a second autopsy in late July 2022. This new examination, conducted by an independent forensic team, completely contradicted the police's version of events and became the turning point in the case. The second autopsy revealed shocking details that had been previously concealed or misrepresented. Forensic analysis showed that Yosua was shot at least 5 times, and the trajectory of the bullets suggested a close-range execution-style killing, not a shootout. One bullet entered through the back of his head and exited through his eye, a clear indication of a close-range shot, possibly as a finishing execution. Other bullets hit his chest and abdomen, fired from above, suggesting that Yosua was either kneeling or lying down when he was shot. These findings were in direct conflict with the police's initial claims of a gunfight between Yosua and Brigadier Richard Eliezer. Aside from gunshot wounds, the forensic team found multiple injuries suggesting brutal torture before Yosua was killed. Deep bruises and lacerations on his face and body, indicating he was beaten severely. Broken fingers, suggesting that he may have been restrained or tortured before being shot. Burn marks, possibly from cigarettes or a heated object, further pointing to inhumane treatment before his execution. One of the most critical pieces of forensic evidence was the absence of gunpowder residue on Yosua's hands. This indicated that Yosua never fired a weapon, which directly contradicted the police's claim that he was involved in a shootout. The entire exchange of gunfire narrative was fabricated to frame his death as self-defense. The autopsy's impact, public outrage, and a national scandal. When the findings from the second autopsy were publicly released, they shattered the police's credibility and fueled nationwide protests. The Indonesian public, already suspicious of police corruption, now had solid proof that Brigadier Yosua was tortured and executed, not killed in a gunfight. The Indonesian police attempted to cover up the murder. High-ranking officials, including Inspector General Ferdy Sambo, were likely involved in a massive conspiracy. Under intense pressure, the government could no longer ignore the case. Calls for justice and accountability grew louder, forcing the authorities to take action, a decision that would soon lead to the downfall of one of the most powerful police officers in Indonesia. As the second autopsy results exposed the gruesome truth behind Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat's death, the official police narrative began to fall apart. Initially, the Indonesian National Police, Polri, claimed that Yosua was killed in a shootout after allegedly harassing Putri Candrawati, the wife of Inspector General Ferdy Sambo. However, as investigators dug deeper, inconsistencies and contradictions emerged, unraveling what appeared to be a carefully orchestrated cover-up. Several key pieces of evidence that could have verified the police's version of events were either missing, tampered with, or destroyed. leading to increased suspicion. CCTV footage mysteriously disappeared. Security cameras at Ferdy Sambo's residence, where Yosua was murdered, had their recordings erased or were mysteriously broken at the time of the incident. When authorities requested footage, police officials stalled and later claimed it was unavailable due to a technical failure. The autopsy results showed that Yosua was likely tortured before being shot, yet the official police report never mentioned any signs of struggle or injuries beyond gunshot wounds. The crime scene had been cleaned and tampered with before forensic teams arrived, further suggesting a cover-up. Despite claims of a shootout, only one gun was fired, the one allegedly used by Brigadier Richard Eliezer under Sambo's orders. No gunpowder residue was found on Yosua's hands, proving he never fired a weapon, contradicting the police's self-defense claim. The biggest turning point in the case came when Brigadier Richard Eliezer, the officer who initially took responsibility for Yosua's death, changed his statement and exposed the murder plot. Under intense scrutiny, Brigadier confessed that he did not act in self-defense, but rather carried out an execution order from Ferdy Sambo. His revised testimony exposed shocking details. Ferdy Sambo personally ordered him to shoot Yosua. Yosua never pulled out a gun or posed any threat. After Yosua was shot, Sambo himself fired another bullet into his body to stage the scene. This confession completely shattered the police's original version and forced authorities to arrest several high-ranking officers involved in the cover-up. After Bradier's confession, other police officers began revealing more details, proving that Yosua's murder was premeditated, not spontaneous. Inspector General Sambo threatened his subordinates to comply with the cover-up. Several officers, including Sambo's wife Putri Candrawati, played key roles in misleading investigators. With multiple testimonies confirming the murder plot, the case became one of the biggest police corruption scandals in Indonesian history. The overwhelming public backlash forced the Indonesian government to take unprecedented action. Ferdy Sambo was arrested on August 9, 2022, along with his wife and other involved officers. Dozens of police officials were investigated for their role in the cover-up. President Joko Widodo demanded police reforms, emphasizing that no one was above the law. The unraveling of the official story and the shocking truth behind Yosua's murder had now reached a national crisis, and the Indonesian justice system faced immense pressure to deliver justice. With the cover-up fully exposed, the Indonesian judicial system was forced to act swiftly. The case moved to trial, and the country watched as one of its highest-ranking police officials, Inspector General Ferdy Sambo, faced justice for his role in the premeditated murder of Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat. The Indonesian prosecutor's office filed charges against 5 key suspects, including Ferdy Sambo, his wife Putri Candrawati, Brigadier Richard Eliezer, Brigadier Ricky Rizal, and Kuat Maruf, a household aide. Each was charged with varying levels of involvement in the murder and subsequent cover-up. In February 2023, the court delivered historic sentences. Ferdy Sambo was sentenced to death, the harshest possible punishment under Indonesian law. The judge cited his abuse of power and calculated efforts to obstruct justice. Putri Candrawati received a 20-year prison sentence, as the court ruled she was actively involved in the plot to murder Yosua. Brigadier, due to his cooperation, was sentenced to 1.5 years in prison, significantly lower than others. Brigadier Ricky Rizal was sentenced to 13 years in prison. Kuat Maruf received 15 years in prison. These sentences were widely seen as a major victory for justice, though some argued that Brigadier should have been punished more harshly. The murder of Yosua and the corruption within the police force led to massive reforms in the Indonesian legal and law enforcement system. Over 80 police officers were investigated, and several were fired or demoted for their roles in obstructing justice. The case damaged public trust in the police, leading to increased calls for accountability and transparency. President Joko Widodo promised police reforms, ensuring that such abuse of power would not happen again. While the legal battle ended, the case left a lasting impact on Indonesia, serving as a grim reminder of police corruption and the fight for justice. The murder of Brigadier Nofriansyah Yosua Hutabarat was not just a crime of passion or power, but a case that exposed deep-rooted corruption within the Indonesian law enforcement system. What started as a mysterious death covered in lies turned into a landmark case that held high-ranking officials accountable for their crimes. Ferdy Sambo, once a respected police general, was stripped of his rank, sentenced to death, and disgraced in front of the nation. His wife, subordinates, and household aides all faced the consequences of their involvement, proving that justice, no matter how delayed, will always prevail. For Yosua's family, the pain of losing their son in such a brutal and senseless manner will never fade. But their relentless pursuit of the truth, along with the public's demand for justice, ensured that Yosua's death was not in vain. This case left an undeniable mark on Indonesia, forcing long overdue police reforms and reminding the nation that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. While justice was served, the question remains: how many other hidden crimes remain buried beneath corruption? What do you think? Was justice truly served, or was this just the tip of a much deeper problem?
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.